empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order bonus NFL free agency edition. This is something that we've been wanting to do. We've been wanting to branch out a little bit into the world of pro football. We know that a lot of you are very passionate about pro football. We have been huge pro football fans for a long time. I went to every Browns game since '99 until I had to go to college in '03 to play for Ohio State. So we're going to talk Browns. We're going to talk Bengals. We might throw in a little bit of Packers because my good friend Nevadabuck is going to join us. But before we do that, as always, we appreciate you, gentlemen and gentlewomen. We have really been growing this channel. It's been unbelievable. If you enjoy this video, please leave us a like and a subscription. And in our comments, comment who do you think has been the biggest free agency signing. Obviously, a lot of people are going to say Tom Brady, but think outside the box. Think if it's been a stud wide receiver moving, if it's been an O lineman for the Bengals. I know a lot of you Bengals fans are really excited about the moves that they've made. So just leave us a couple comments on who you think is, and also who do you think is going to go where. So with that, I am going to bring in Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. It's an NFL free agency eve, and this is kind of exciting. Teams are changing. Information is kind of flying fast and furious, and you're seeing some huge changes. Teams' fortunes are swinging with one signing, and it's kind of an exciting time for both of our Ohio teams as well.
Yeah, and obviously the Bengals have made a humongous splash with Alex Kappas and Ted Karras. They signed maybe the premier guard in the entire class, and they also got a very good center. Talk a little bit about the shoring up of the offensive line by the Cincinnati Bengals and what that could do for their prospects going forward.
Well, when you've got a quarterback like Joe Burrow, it just makes sense. That was literally the only hole. I love their defense, Burrow and Chase and Higgins. You love the things that they can bring offensively. Just that offensive line was not giving Burrow any time, and for them to go out there and get a Super Bowl winning guard like Kappa and add some depth, I couldn't be more excited for the Bengals. I really think after years and years and years of doing things wrong, they're doing it right now, and they're going to be something to deal with, especially with the Steelers' answer to the quarterback issue being that they went out and signed Mitch Trubisky. I think the division's wide open, and if you can get through the division, make it into the playoffs, then anybody's got a chance at winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if they're done yet. Obviously they still have Joe Burrow for a couple more years on his rookie deal, which is, as that window is a window where you really have to take advantage of it, because as soon as Joe Burrow re-ups, he's going to be making $60 million a year, and that means that a couple of these extra pieces, maybe your stud number 2 receiver or your stud number 3 best offensive lineman or number 2 D end is going to have to go bye-bye, because when he's making 15, it's one thing, but when he's making 60, that's like you have to lose 3 $15 million players off your roster to stay under the cap. So got to take advantage of this window with Joe Burrow and even Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase will get a monster contract when he comes up, and thankfully you still have him for 3 more years on his regional deal, then he'll get that rookie option for a 5th year, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to do an extension with him. But with that, you had some interesting tidbits on what would be an absolutely mammoth deal. So I'm going to switch over to my wonderful graphic of Deshaun Watson in a Cleveland Browns jersey. Nevada, tell me a little bit about what you've heard about that.
Well, when that first started, coming out, there was, some interest between the Browns and Watson, and then I was really kind of dismissing a lot of what I was hearing from the agents as being just noise. But now I can confirm that there's legitimate interest between the organization and Watson, and they're going to make a real offer. You're hearing something along the lines of Baker Mayfield and 3 first-round picks to try to get it done. And I think they're a real player. I think Watson sees the Browns as a viable Super Bowl contender. It's a place he wants to play. He's got a couple other locations. Like the Saints. The Saints are kind of a logical spot for him, but I'm not sure the Saints are built to win. And the Browns are built to win and built to win now. And I think that is a deal as crazy as it sounds. I think it's a deal that can happen. And I think Baker has rubbed a lot of people in the organization the wrong way. Clearly there's an issue with him and the head coach where, when they're taking not too veiled shots at each other, both publicly and privately. I think the Browns are ready to move on from Mayfield and his kind of erratic play, and I think they're ready to go all in, kind of a la the Rams did. Realizing they needed to get rid of Jared. Jared Goff was good enough, but not good enough for the Rams to win the Super Bowl. And I think they set a standard for a lot of other teams, and I think the Browns are going to try to follow that formula, make a humongous offer for Deshaun Watson, and see if they can entice him.
Okay, so you're Andrew Berry for the next 5 minutes. What type of offer, what would be the highest amount of compensation that you would offer the Texans in terms of number of draft picks? Obviously, throw in Baker. What's your offer to the Texans?
I mean, honestly, I would give up just anybody not named Myles Garrett and as many draft picks as it took to get him. I mean, that's how good Watson is. Watson's a top 10 quarterback, probably a top 5 quarterback. I think he's 25 years old, just heading into his prime, dual threat, can do it all. And that's exactly what the Browns need to take the next step. And they're not going to take the next step with what they have. They're just not. Baker Mayfield is not the answer. I mean, his ceiling is at best as a guy like Kirk Cousins, and his floor is out of the league. So I just don't think that you can win with mediocre quarterback play like that. And I think the Browns are doing themselves a disservice not putting their best foot forward on an opportunity like this. And I think they're going all in. They're pulling out all the stops to try to attract Deshaun Watson to their organization, and we'll see if they're successful. We should know shortly.
Yeah, and with Cleveland, I've always felt like, when you're like a city that isn't, a Los Angeles or a New York or a Dallas or a Miami, the best way for you to get a lot of these guys, if you don't draft them, is you got to trade for them. Because if Deshaun Watson hits free agency, he's probably not looking at Cleveland. But when you have a chance to trade for him and show him some love, and give up big, you'd have a nice way of getting rid of Baker Mayfield. You give up probably 2 or 3 first-round picks, and you get yourself an absolute superstar at the quarterback position. I just think you have to do it. And, when you trade for Amari Cooper, who's making $20 million this year, he's going to restructure his contract. I think that, you say that we're ready to win. You still have Jed Wills, you still have your right tackle. They released J.C. Treader today, but, they have the best pair of guards maybe in the entire NFL, and Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. The defense is loaded up. That culture's changed. Myles Garrett is an absolute, probably the best player in the NFL on defense other than Aaron Donald. And I think you're right. I think that when you have an opportunity to get a kid like this, these kids don't come open very often. I mean, not at that age, not at that premium, that ceiling that he has. And I think you just got to go for it. I mean, the Browns they've never had a quarterback who is like a surefire lock top 5 guy. And if they have a chance to get him, I think you got to swing big and go get it. And it'd be unbelievable if they pulled it off. I also, I added, the graphic of Amari Cooper in his Browns gear. What were your thoughts when Cleveland traded for Amari Cooper? What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, it was kind of an interesting trade, just because the Browns had struggled with OBJ, and you knew at that point when they went with Amari Cooper that they were going to try to do something with Jarvis Landry, and then sure enough they cut Jarvis Landry. Amari Cooper's a little frustrated with his play because he felt like Dak Prescott was kind of holding him back. Well, welcome to hell then, Amari, because you're coming to Baker Mayfield. You know what I'm saying? So I think when you go with a wide receiver like that, clearly you're trying to upgrade your quarterback position as well. And I think Watson would be, Amari Cooper would be the happiest guy on the planet if Deshaun Watson came to Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously DeAndre Hopkins was outstanding with Deshaun Watson. What type of percentage do you put that week 1 for the Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield is under center at quarterback?
It's less than 50% right now. I'd say it's less than, they, and just these public overtures that they've made, to Deshaun Watson. And this is real. This is happening. And this is definitely a definite possibility. And so for, Baker Mayfield, that's a big slap in the face. Now he seems to thrive on that kind of stuff, the disrespect card. And, so I think he would play it that way. But the reality is I'm not sure if the relationship can ever be put back together again. And like I said, when you see a quarterback and a head coach just publicly feuding about play calling, about injury status, about other things. I'm just not sure that's a reparable type of situation. I think Baker's done in Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think that it's high time where it's time to talk extension, and like, do you really want to give Baker Mayfield that big extension, or he's going to have to be making probably over $30 million a year, and you're basically in bed with him if you go and do that. So, it'd be fascinating to see if somehow they came to terms, but I can't see him lasting. I think that they're going to do everything they can to try to get rid of him and try to reboot the quarterback position, because I just don't think Amari Cooper, if he doesn't like Dak Prescott, I mean, getting Baker Mayfield is going to be, he's going to be as miserable of a human being as you can ever imagine, because he doesn't have the arm, he doesn't have the talent, he's short, he's slow, and he's just not a fit for what Cleveland needs. He's not the kind of guy, Deshaun Watson was the number one player in the country, all everything. That's the kind of guy you want to hitch your wagon to. That's the kind of guy that you're fine with paying, because you're getting a premium player at a premium price, as opposed to, an average to below average player for, a high price, not a premium price, but he's not going to get 50 million. He's probably going to get 35 or 30 million if you re-up him. And I don't see it happening. With that, and also we got to talk about your Packers. How do you grade how the Packers, have done so far? I mean, obviously you got to give them an A because they got Rodgers back. I mean, and everything after that's gravy, but what do you think of the Packers move so far?
Well, I mean, signing Campbell back at middle linebacker and getting, he was kind of a foundational piece for them to, he was one of the 3 all pros that they had on the team last year. Putting the franchise tag on Devontae, which is it's a smart move from a negotiating standpoint, because it kind of forces Devontae to come to terms on that long-term contract. Obviously, getting Rodgers back, which it was highly expected by me. I think a lot of other people weren't quite as sure, but I really thought that he was going to come back. I mean, what it's exciting as a Packer fan is you just know that they're going to go for it for the next at least couple of seasons, as opposed to waving the white flag and ushering in the Jordan Love 6 and 11 years. You know what I'm saying? So I think by doing this, they finally have admitted fully that they made a mistake on the Jordan Love draft pick. Probably maybe cost us a Super Bowl, but at least we're turning it around now and trying to go forward. And it's exciting because, like I said, because players like Rodgers don't come along very often, and when you have them, you've got to go for it. And I think the Packers are showing some signs that they are going for it, and that's certainly going to make for a fun NFL season.
Yeah, and just like Rodgers, like a guy like Watson, these guys don't come available unless there's some sort of extenuating circumstance, like the Texans basically having a full reboot and a rebuild like they're doing right now, and him being unhappy with the ownership there. So it's, when some magical thing happens, it's like Russell Wilson. I mean, Matthew Stafford, like these guys are the guys that can go win championships or championship level quarterbacks, and you just have to move heaven and earth and give up whatever it takes to get them, and then just roll the dice with whatever you have left, and try to fill the needs with the players you give up and the picks you give up. Because I think the Browns, they're picking at 13, throw in Baker, throw in maybe another player or two, throw in 1 or 2 more first round picks, and I think if you're the Texans, like, you look at the compensation you potentially get from the Saints or Panthers. Panthers probably going to give them Sam Darnold. The Saints really don't have anybody at quarterback they could offer them. They just have draft pick capital, and it'll be fascinating to see. See some of these moves. And when the Browns are releasing, Jarvis Landry, obviously that has to offset some of Cooper's contract. With J.C. Treader, it's like, they've got cap space, but they're trying to get a little bit more so they can make some moves and they can open up for that Deshaun Watson contract. So that's going to be a massive deal if they can get it done. So with that, we'll wrap this up. Quick closing prediction: where does Deshaun Watson end up, Nevada?
I'm going with Cleveland.
Good.
I think Deshaun Watson comes to Cleveland. I think they get it done. I think they throw the kitchen sink at the Texans and manage to get it done. And I know that's it's a long shot pick, but I just have a feeling that it could happen. As a long suffering Browns fan, it's something good's got to happen to the franchise one time. So I'm praying that this is the time.
Well, in the last few years, they've really been, throwing the dice out there. I mean, they traded for Odell, which didn't really work out. They've traded for Amari Cooper. So they're not afraid to take on some big contracts and some star power. Some contracts that maybe some other teams want to get rid of, some headaches that maybe some other teams want to get rid of. And Deshaun kind of fits both. He's got he doesn't want to re-sign in Houston. He doesn't want anything to do with Houston. He's obviously a huge contract, but I agree with you. I think that there's a real chance that this kid could come to Cleveland because if I'm Andrew Berry and there's a chance to get a kid like Deshaun Watson, who's a top 5 quarterback, and kind of pair him with Myles Garrett, so you have a cornerstone on offense, cornerstone on defense. Like, I just don't know how you don't do that. Especially when you're in that win now window where you've got a strong offensive line, you've got Nick Chubb under contract, you've got you're going to have Amari Cooper and whoever the number 2 ends up being, if it's Peoples-Jones, if they draft somebody or whatever it is. And, I think the defense will be better next year. You don't want to waste too many years of Myles Garrett's prime because he's a monster. And I think you're right. I think you got to swing big and go get the guy. So I agree with you. I hope it happens. And it would be fantastic for the state of Ohio and the city of Cleveland if we could get Deshaun Watson in a Browns uniform. So with that, we're going to close this one out. Again, we talk about everything on BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a huge Cleveland Browns thread, huge Cincinnati Bengals thread. Obviously, we're the number 1 source for Ohio State football inside information. So if you love football, you love Ohio State football, and you want the number 1 source for inside information, you've got to join BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a blast on there every night. We're on the board. We have the most active board in the entire the hemisphere of Ohio State athletics. And like I said, we've got some fantastic people on there, great contributors, and it's only getting bigger, guys. So we appreciate you. As always, thank you. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, get a subscription to Buckeye Scoop, subscribe to our channel, and comment on who do you think has made the best signing in free agency thus far. So with that, appreciate you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you for all you do. This has been the Scoop World Order.